Hello viewers, you're watching Eyeafrica TV from our West African Broadcasting Center, the Gambia. I am Mutala Sisa, and with me I have two very important personalities who are here in the Gambia to launch a very important initiative known as the Living Legacies, the launch of Gambia's first traditional music archive. These people, I'm going to tell you a little about each of them. And to start with, the first person is an English national, age 42, but first came to the Gambia at the age of 8. This person, his father is a Nigerian and his mother is an English with an Irish descent. He's a composer and a multi-instrumentalist, a producer and songwriter. I present to you Mr. Tunde Jegede. Welcome to this panel, Mr. Jegede. And with Mr. Tunde, I have a world-renowned photographer and filmmaker, Mrs. Sunara Begum. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Sunara. To start with you, Mr. Tunde, you are a UK-based composer and an international Kora player, but I'm very sure before you become a Kora player, it actually started with some training. And you first came to the Gambia to start learning Kora at the age of 8. Tell me what has been your inspirational that lead you to abandoning all the very beautiful parks in the UK and coming to Gambia at such a teen age to start learning Kora?
Music is what first brought me to the Gambia, and particularly it was this instrument. I first knew the Kora in London from a Senegalese musician, Bully Sissoko, and that's when I first heard the instrument in London. Then I met a master of the Kora, Amadou Bansang Jabati, when I was 8 years old, and it was because of him that I came here to study the Kora at that age. And I was staying in Cambridge and studying. That was when I began my journey in the Kora.
Okay. Just a little bit of that. At that age, when you first, like in the traditional African settings, at that age, when you tell your parents you want to do a thing like that, they will actually tell you, especially when it's got to do with traveling to another country, they will actually tell you it's too early and all this. So what gave your parents the courage to let you come to Gambia? And
I think my father's an artist, he's a visual artist, he's a sculptor and painter, so he was in the arts, and he also knew this Kora player, Bully Sissoko, very well. And so Bully went back to France where he was living, and I was drawn to this instrument, and so both my parents were behind that because my father knew the importance of culture, particularly African culture, growing up in UK, where in that time, the early 80s, late 70s, there was very little African culture for young black people growing up in Britain. So when I had that interest to follow this instrument, and that journey brought me to Africa, he was supportive of that, but I actually came with my mother, who came with me here, and came with me and brought me and supported me through that early following my musical dreams, as it were.
Okay. And your father, a Nigerian, of course, I had expected that you would have gone to Nigeria with their variety of cultures and music and all these things to actually go study the Nigerian culture or an instrument in Nigeria, shut up. But then you choose Gambia and the Kora instrument in particular. Why?
It was the Kora. I was drawn to the sound, and the music of the Kora is very particular. I mean, I grew up, I played percussion. Before I played the Kora, I was playing percussion with my father, drums, Yoruba percussion. But once I heard the Kora, I was drawn to it, and I left the percussion and I just concentrated on the Kora. It was unusual, but for me, growing up in Britain, I didn't know so much the difference, in terms of Gambia, Manding, Europe and Nigeria. At that early age, music is just a world. So if you follow that instrument, you're drawn to this instrument, you then go, I want to go where that thing is. Later you learn, okay, this tradition is different and all of that. And people are often question me as to my name, which is a very Yoruba name, and then why are you playing this? This instrument is a Manding instrument. But I think in this time and this era, we have to be more interested in other African traditions, not just our own. Before we're interested in other traditions from the world, I think we should also have an interest in all the traditions that Africa have to offer, because it's a very rich continent with a lot of rich traditions, and we can learn from one another.
Okay. And for how long has it taken you to learn the Kora and become an international Kora player as you are now? Because looking at it, it's 32 strings, if I'm right?
21, yeah.
21 strings. Okay, so playing all of these and making an amazing sound out of it doesn't come within just 1 day, 2 days, or 1 month or something. So for how long has it taken you?
For me, I've been playing for 30 years, and I think all the time you are still learning. The learning never ends, but it's just you continue your growth, your development, but there's not an end to the learning. and then I also played the cello, the violin cello.
Yeah.
So I had that. Whilst I was learning the Kora, I was also studying Western music in parallel at the same time. So I had the two traditions that I was dealing with.
So, okay, during this period of learning the Kora and all this, I'm sure you had some amazing memories about when you started first, and then things that happen sometimes when you're learning, you make some mistakes and all this. So the whole thing becomes more and more interesting. You record any of those moments?
Definitely. I think the two traditions were very, very different. With the Kora, you learn by ear. You have to live. You have to live with your teacher. You have to live with the family, and you have to live with this music. It's not something you're just learning. It's not music. It's a lifestyle. It's more than lifestyle. It's something you have to experience and really be deeply involved in. Studying Western classical music at the same time, it's different. It's different. You have written scores. You go to school and all of that. I was in music school, so I studied music in music school. But with the griot tradition, because it's in a family legacy that goes back so many generations, you really have to be connected to that experience to delve into an instrument like the Kora.
Right. To you now, Mrs. Sunara, you came with Mr. Tunde here. I'm not sure, is this your first time in the Gambia?
Third time now.
Your third time, good. So I'm sure each of the trips have their own reasons for coming. So now coming with Mr. Tunde to launch this a very important initiative, Living Legacies. What is your stand in this whole project?
Well, myself and Tunde, we founded this project about a year ago, and Tunde will tell you that he just felt after coming here for 30 years, he felt that it was important to now, after so many years, to really give a forum for traditional musicians in the Gambia to have an outlet to express what they do through music, through the voice, through the instruments that they play. My role in it has been I'm a photographer and a filmmaker, so my role has been to document all of the musicians that we've been archiving. We came in January, February for 2 months earlier this year, and we went around most of the Gambia and documenting and doing field recordings in different locations with a whole load of the younger generation of up and coming musicians and of all sorts. They were singers, balafon players, kora players. We didn't do any percussion, no, and the conti. And now we're finishing that off. So we're finishing those field recordings and actually we film them out in the environment to really give a sense of the locations, to give a sense of the fact that music isn't in a studio setting. It's part of life. It's part of how people live. It's part of the landscape. It's part of nature. And so now we're here to launch this archive.
So as a a photographer and a filmmaker, I'm sure and photography, filmmaking, and also music, two things that are in and out and all that. So how important is this to your career as a movie maker and also a photographer?
Oh, for me, it's completely in sync with what I do as a filmmaker. I've always been interested from an early age how to use film and photography to express stories that are untold, stories that we don't hear in the mass media or mass communications. So my calling has been how we express those using film and using photography.
Good. And back to you, Mr. Tunde. You have been at some point appointed as innovations composer in UK and Eastern Orchestral Board. In 1995, BBC TV has featured you in a documentary called Africa, I Remember, with focus on your orchestral work. And in this program, you perform new compositions alongside the London Symphonia. How has this contributed to your career, and what sense of achievement actually has it given you as a person?
Yeah, I mean, since then I've worked with many orchestras, symphony orchestras across the world, in France, in UK, I've worked in America. But I think I've always tried to carry the traditions and the music that I am involved with in the work that I do. So when I'm working with symphony orchestras, I write scores, I've done music for films. But I always try and involve some element of whether it's African traditional instruments or the jazz legacy or different instruments from our tradition brought in with the orchestra. I like to cross because it's educational. It shows, and I wanted to show some of what we have in a new light. So a lot of my compositions, in fact, most of them, I always include some element of either African music or music from the African diaspora within my compositions.
It's like you're already an African Kora or African music ambassador in the West already.
Yeah, I try.
Very well. This time you are in the Gambia to launch Living Legacies, like I said, the Gambia's first traditional music archive, scheduled for the 30th of May 2014 at Gambia is Good, GIG, that is opposite the Pipeline Mosque. Tell us more about this initiative.
Yeah, this was something, because I came a long time ago, I saw a lot of the older generation of players, like, as I said, Amadou Bansang Jabati, who I studied with. I remember Jalinyama Suso, I met Alaji Bayakonti, all of those players. There were a lot of players. And then when I've come back over the years, and especially now, I see the younger generation, they were great players. But my concern was that some aspects of the tradition possibly were being left behind because they're not popular, in terms of maybe people feel we don't need some of the historical aspects as much as they did in the past. But for me, I wanted to create a forum where those things could still be relevant, because I think those things are still relevant and they're an important part of the culture. So this, obviously a lot of the young musicians have their bands and all of that's great and that's important. But what we were looking at here was not having to play for commercial reasons. So not playing music because it has to be popular and you have to sell a lot of records. The idea of this is music that we feel is culturally important, that we need to maintain for the cultural good. And so when I was talking to the players, I was saying, if there's pieces that you want to play that are in homage of some of the players that went before, this is a forum for you to be able to do that and to be encouraged to do that, to explore the tradition and play that without having to worry that people don't, people may not, that music may not be popular or whatever in the moment. Because at some stage, you always have to draw from tradition. Tradition is the root of everything. So even though change is important, if you don't maintain that, it's going to be a problem tomorrow. And so that's really what we were responding to make sure that there's some kind of forum for the traditional music to be maintained, basically.
Right. So, Sonara, if you may give us a quick rundown of activities that we are expecting this evening at Alliance, because according at Gambia is Good, because according to the poster, we are expecting Gambian people, artists in the Gambia that are more or less involved with traditional instruments like the Kora, people like Sambusu, so anywhere you go that music is pure balafong, Manding music, Afro Manding, Sura Suso, the same thing, Kora in a modern way. Hame Sabo, Yusufa Suso. It's a lot of Suso and Jobade. When you talk about Kora and this instrument, it's all about this Jobate, Sora, Suso, and all these things. So, what sort of activities are we expecting this evening?
Well, it's taking place at Gambia's Good, which is a beautiful cinema space with an exhibition. So it's actually filled with white walls, and we've got a photo exhibition taking place. And the photo exhibition are all of the artists that took part in this archive. So there's photographs of them. And also we've got you'll see, you have to come along to it, I won't say too much, but there'll also be film screenings, so performances that we filmed when we were here 2 months ago. We'll be showcasing all of the films. We've invited all of the artists involved, so they'll be there. So it's almost like a sort of family setting, because everybody is coming, everybody that's part of this project will be there on this day. And there'll also be photography exhibition, the film screening, and Tunde will be talking about the project from the beginning right up to now, and also what we plan to do.
Well, amazing enough, and everyone out there, I'm advising everyone not to be left out on this day. It's on the 30th of May 2014 at Gambia is Good, right opposite Pipeline Mosque, and the time is from 6:30 upwards. And this is the most interesting part is we don't say the ticket is 150 or something. It's a free show, obviously, so you can come around and then witness this amazing project that is really going to help boost this cultural part of the Gambian music and all this. We all say we're doing our own quota in Gambian music, but this is a brother, a sister from somewhere else coming to give us something very important to help us boost the music industry. So like I said, it's on the 30th of May 2014 at Gambia is Good, and the time is from 6:30 upwards, and the fee is absolutely free. So we're hoping to see everyone there, and of course we're going to be there to cover the event. And on that note, I've been your host, Motala Sise, and thank you for being there.